Welcome to the College Neuro Network, a podcast series part of Simply Neuroscience, The Synapse. My name is Jenna.
And my name is Sasha, and we're your hosts for today. The College Neuro Network has discussions with undergraduate students studying neuroscience and neuroscience professors in order to gain insight into the neuroscience department and opportunities in the nation's top universities.
Today's episode is focused on Columbia University, a private Ivy League research university located in New York City. Known for its interdisciplinary core curriculum, curious student body, and accessible opportunities and resources throughout the city, Columbia is ranked number 3 in national universities by the U.S. News and World Report.
Today, joining us is Jacqueline Erler, an undergraduate at Columbia. Welcome, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for joining us today to discuss your experiences at Columbia as a student studying neuroscience.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
First, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what sparked your interest in neuroscience?
I'm Jacqueline. I'm a rising junior at Columbia studying neuroscience and behavior, and I'm also on the pre-med track. Beyond academics at Columbia, I'm really into extracurricular involvement. So I'm in a few different clubs that I'm really passionate about. One of them is Peer Health Exchange, so I'm a health educator. And we train to teach health education workshops to high school students in under-resourced schools in New York City that otherwise wouldn't have a health education. So that's one of my favorite things, and I do that weekly on Friday mornings usually. I'm in Columbia Science Review, which is a scientific literacy publication on campus. And then I do a handful of other things. I'm a tour guide, orientation leader for first years, a CUL peer health leader, which is kind of like a representative of the student health department at Columbia. And then how I got into neuro is a great question. It kind of started in high school. I didn't take any neuro classes specifically, but there was a teacher at my high school who was really young and out of college, and he majored in neuroscience. And I talked to him a little bit about his experience, and he loved his major. He was so passionate about neuroscience and just like his entire college experience through that lens. So I figured this was something I was really into because I loved seeing how passionate he was. So maybe that was something I was interested in majoring in. And then I also did this club in high school called Medical Explorers through my local hospital, where we kind of did these training sessions in different departments in the hospital. And one night we got to go to the hospital lab, and I held a human brain in my hands for the first time. And it was such a cool experience. Definitely a formative, life-changing thing for me, because that was just the moment I realized this is so cool, and there's so much mystery in neuroscience, and it really felt like this new frontier, and there was so much to explore. So I decided that when I was applying to college, I would declare neuro, and not much has changed. I've just gotten more passionate along the way.
Oh, that's really awesome. And my next question is, what factors drew you to committing to Columbia for your undergrad studies?
Yeah, a few different factors for sure. One of them is core, for sure. The core curriculum is very unique to Columbia, and I would recommend, if you're interested in applying, making sure that you read up on what the core is. But essentially, it's just a set of liberal arts classes that cover things from philosophy, literature, art, music, and it's a set of classes that all undergraduate students have to take before graduating. So for me, that was something I was really attracted to. I love the idea of structure, and I was also into a lot of interdisciplinary subjects in high school. I loved English and art and stuff like that. So the core was very attractive to me, and I also liked how it was really a community building thing, because there's just something really magical about every freshman taking the same class and reading the same book at the same time. So no matter where you are on campus during your first year, you can always talk about, like, how do you like the Odyssey? Because it's what you're reading in literature humanities that day. So that was something that I really loved. And then New York City is just such an incredible place to spend 18 to 21, 22 years old. That is just such an incredible experience and very unique to have. And I love Columbia because it's very much this campus feel, this very small community feel within this massive sprawling city. So you can be out in the hustle and bustle of Manhattan and just walk through the gates, and all of a sudden there's lawns everywhere, there's friendly faces everywhere, and there was something really special about that as well. And then also just the neuroscience opportunities I saw when I was touring there. My tour guide was a neuro major, and at that time they had just built the new building. It's called Zuckerman Mind, Brain, and Behavior Institute. And it's dedicated to neuroscience research. So that was just something that was so appealing to me. And then you have the Columbia Med Center, which as pre-med, that's also appealing. So yeah, lots of factors, but I'm really happy with my decision.
Do you think you can expand a little bit on what sets Columbia Neuroscience Department apart from those at other universities?
Yeah, totally. So at Columbia, the neuro department is or there is no neuro department, I guess is like the best way to put it, which sounds a little crazy, but it just means there's no single department dedicated to the neuro major. It's actually an interdepartmental major. So it's this co-sponsored major between the biology department and the psychology department. And I love that because that means that you're a student of both departments. So like for example, like on my Columbia, it's like a online thing. It says I'm a student of both departments. I get emails from both departments. I can take classes in both, see professors from both, research opportunities from both. So to me, it just seems like double the opportunity almost. And that was very appealing to me. And then also it's really cool because it's almost like this spectrum then. As a neuro major, you can be more into the bio side of things, or you can be more into the psych side of things. And then if you want to get really expansive, you can add all these axes and have like the comp sci side of neuro and the statistics side of neuro. There's so many interdisciplinary ways you can get involved in neuro. But I personally spent the first kind of 2 years of Columbia really exploring if I was more that bio neuro major or that psych neuro major. And the fluidity between the two departments and being part of both allows you to do that. And then I've kind of like come to the conclusion, I just joined a psych lab for research I'll be doing for my senior thesis. So I feel like I'm kind of more on the psych side of things, whereas I have neuro friends that are in bio labs doing bio research, and you're all neuro majors, but in lots of different ways. And I love that.
Yeah, I think the fluidity between both departments and how you can be part of both the bio and psych department as a student at Columbia is really unique. At my university, I'm minoring in psychology, so it's more like I have to integrate psychology into my own curriculum, whereas you already have that at your own disposal, and that's really awesome to hear. So far, what has been your favorite class as a neuroscience major, and why?
Ooh, great question. So far, I'd say it's actually been 2 intro classes. I'm taking a lot of neuro classes this semester actually, so I feel like if you had asked me this question in a few months, I would say there's this fundamentals of human neuropsychology class I'm signed up to take this semester, and I'm very excited for it. I've already started like reading through the textbook because I think I'm gonna really like it. But so far, some things that I've really liked is the intro psych class, which is something you have to take as a neuro major. And it's just such an exciting class. The professor teaches it so well, and it's a really great survey. There's a whole unit on neuroscience within it and neurobiology more focused, like the synapse and neurotransmitters and all that. And then I'd say another one is actually part of a core class. So every freshman has to take this class called Frontiers of Science during their freshman year. And it's kind of a survey of all these different fields in science. So you have 4 3-week units, and I believe it's neuro, astrophysics, ecology, and climate science. So you cover all of that over a semester. And the neuro unit is the first one you do, and it's taught by Professor Daphna Shahami, who is one of the scientific consults on the Disney movie Inside Out, which is really cool. And she is a really prominent researcher, and she takes time out of her schedule to teach every freshman, whether you're a STEM major or not, 3 weeks of neuroscience. And that was kind of my first teaser to neuro at Columbia, and I loved it. And I thought she was such an incredible professor, and that is just like such an incredible example of the type and the caliber of faculty you have access to at Columbia.
So would you say that is your favorite professor, or do you have another favorite professor you'd like to talk about?
She's been one of my favorites. The other one is Patricia Lindemann. She taught the intro psych class. She's just so hilarious. I think there's something about having a really down-to-earth professor, which is pretty, I'd say, universal across a lot of Columbia professors I've experienced. They're so smart and so prominent in their fields, but you go to their office hours and you're laughing and you're having really good chats about not only the class, but about your life. And I think there's something special about that. And I also have really enjoyed the grad student I work with in my lab right now. She's a 4th-year grad student, and she's kind of been a mentor to me the past few months. And I'm working on a project with her right now, so she's great.
So I know you already discussed a little bit about the accessibility of professors at Columbia, but could you expand a little bit on how easy it is to get in contact with certain professors if you need help?
Super easy. They all offer office hours, and they put their emails on their syllabi, so that you can reach out to them at any point in time. A lot of them hold office hours in their research labs. So it's really cool to kind of, you're entering their turf almost, and where they feel most comfortable. And if you kind of engage in a discussion about their research, they might like take you around and show you what's happening in their lab. Yeah, it's super accessible. And what's nice is there's a lot of different campuses that are part of the Columbia University community. So you have Morningside Heights, which is the undergrad campus, but you also have the Med Center, Manhattanville, which is a kind of a new satellite campus that has Zuckerman in it. And all of those campuses have faculty, researchers, opportunities, and you can use all of them. I did an internship at the Med Center my first couple of years of college. So you're not just limited to your home-based undergraduate campus.
Yeah, that sounds really incredible, like all the opportunities you've been talking about and that dynamic that you were talking about between the professor and student. And kind of our next question for you is, was there anything you found surprising being a student at Columbia, or something unexpected after a couple years on campus?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. I would say definitely how involved I got in a lot of other subjects beyond science, specifically just how involved I got in current events and the political sphere and all of the discourse that's happening right now, which I think is so important. And I graduated high school with just, I felt like a very limited understanding of the world. And, you know, coming to Columbia, being in those core classes, I was able to make friends outside of my major. So a lot of my best friends are poli-sci, history majors, and we engage in, you know, critical discussions all the time about what's happening in our world. And I think especially with social justice movements now, like Black Lives Matter and stuff, Columbia is so great in allowing everyone to get involved in that conversation. It's been really interesting to see how the science department has been engaging in that type of discourse. I just had a journal club in my psych lab where we did a few weeks of reading papers that were about the psychology of protesting, color blindness theory, implicit bias, and it was such a cool way to get engaged with the discourse in my field of expertise. And I feel like the level of confidence and participation I have now in talking about what's going on in the world is something I didn't have before college. And I'm really thankful that that's kind of been an unexpected outcome of my Columbia education. I feel like I'm getting a degree in science, but I'm leaving with a way better understanding of how the world works and how I can actually be engaged in a really important way.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Like, I know Columbia is a very politically active campus, and especially being in New York City, where you're like at the hub of everything, like you have the United Nations there and everything. But it's just incredible to hear that really even the sciences interact with this type of discourse, like you were talking about. And you really came out of the experience feel like you knew so much more. And I know Columbia really focuses on like making like global citizens and like and making sure their students are very active in that type of discussion. So that's amazing to hear. And then kind of our next question for you. So you've talked a lot about how many things you're involved in terms of extracurriculars. So we wanted to ask you how demanding it is to study neuroscience while also balancing like your extracurriculars and your social life.
Yeah, I would say that the Columbia Neuro major isn't necessarily more demanding than other departments. It depends what you add on to it. If you're pre-med as well, which a lot of neuro majors are pre-med, it's more difficult just because you have some outside classes you have to take, although there is a lot of really great overlap between pre-med and neuro. But you also have to take a lot of labs that you wouldn't normally have to take. So if you're adding on pre-professional, you'll have a little bit more of a rigorous course load. And usually the schematic that Columbia gives you for how your courses or your workload breaks down over the 4 years is you end up taking 1/3 of the core, 1/3 of your primary major, and then the other third could be a double major, it could be a concentration, which are what we call minors, or it could just be elective classes in random interests you've picked up along the way. For me, I just decided to stick with the neuro major because I felt like I wanted to use that extra time getting involved in extracurriculars. So if you're someone like me that loves clubs and activities and that's something you really couldn't live without, just finding time for that in your schedule. And it's really all about balance. But I found that neuro major gives you really good balance because especially with taking classes both in bio and psych, those are two of my really primary interests, and in fulfilling the major I'm taking classes in both departments anyway, so it's a great experience, and it's definitely not more work than the next major, I would say.
Got it. And now that we're kind of talking about things outside of academics in terms of like extracurriculars, we also wanted to ask you about research at Columbia and if you've conducted any research and kind of how you obtained that opportunity.
Yeah. So tons of research opportunities at Columbia, and that kind of expands upon that point where we have so many different home bases throughout New York City that you can have opportunities from. And there's a lot of different newsletters and email lists that you can sign up for, and you'll get research opportunities kind of just put into your inbox. My freshman year, I signed up for the pre-med email list, and I found a research opportunity through that was in the neurocritical care unit of the Columbia Medical Center, which is just a few stops away on the one. So it was super easy to commute there. And what I did there, I was kind of a clinical intern for data collection on subarachnoid hemorrhage patients. So I would do these phone interviews where I would ask questions, determine cognitive status and outcome status of patients post-hemorrhage. And that was also great because doctors led that, and I got to shadow around the ward and see doctors doing rounds. It was a really nice experience, and I've kind of graduated on from that, and now I've kind of switched gears and I joined a psych lab. Columbia has these opportunities to get involved in research for credit, which is also really cool. And as a neuro major, you can apply for an honors research thesis through either the bio department or the psych department, which is another example of how you get to choose. And I gravitated more towards psych, so I applied just this summer, actually. And so I'm going to be doing a senior thesis research work in my psych lab. So I'll be getting credit for that research, and at the end of my senior year, that work kind of culminates into a thesis where you do a presentation, a paper. So yeah, you can do research for academic credit like that and do these more formalized programs, or you can just do extracurricular, more like resume boosting or hobby type research.
Got it. Yeah, that senior thesis sounds really exciting. And it's always incredible to hear how involved undergraduates can get in research. And like you were saying, you even had an opportunity in freshman year, which is, I feel like, is really rare for college students. So that's incredible to hear. And then kind of our next question for you is more of a general question, but we wanted to ask what your favorite thing about studying neuroscience at Columbia is just overall.
Right. I think it's probably just the community is so just next level, and you really feel like you're in this welcoming space of scientists. I have a lot of friends in the department that have really guided me towards choosing classes that I'm really interested in. There's professors that are always there to help you out. There's different clubs and activities on campus like Columbia Neuroscience Society, Columbia Synapse, which has to do with traumatic brain injuries. And we've had these conferences on campus led by students that are neuroscience conferences where they'll bring different speakers from different universities. So just the wealth of opportunity and just the community that's dedicated towards building up the neuro program is really inspiring. And I really love that about being involved in neuro.
That's really great to hear about the Columbia community and that you feel very welcomed where you are. And our next question is, you mentioned you were pre-med, so what are your future plans and after you finish your undergrad studies?
Yeah. So the goal right now, I will probably take a gap year just to further research or get some experience. And then I will apply to medical school and become a doctor. I'm not really sure exactly what field yet. I feel like I probably have to actually engage in clinical experience in medical school. A lot of times you switch what you are interested in just depending on your experience with the different fields. But pre-med isn't the only thing that neuro majors do. There's a lot of people that are there for careers in research. So they'll graduate and they'll get a master's or a PhD in grad school and go into setting up their own lab or academia, become a professor. You have people that will become clinical psychologists, social workers, tons of career opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any tips on how high school students can get involved in neuroscience in terms of extracurriculars, organizations, or research?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about just educating yourself, like using the wealth of resources that are on the internet right now, watching TED Talks. You could do courses through online universities, especially now that so many things have transitioned to the online format. In a way that's a blessing and a curse. But now there's just so much information out there. So I would say getting ahead by taking a neuroscience course online through some university that's offering it. And then there's a like crop up of a lot of high school programs, especially summer programs that I've seen recently. There's a few through Columbia. I think if you Google high school summer neuroscience programs, there will be kind of a list. There's way more opportunity than there was when I was in high school, which was just a few years ago, which just like kind of goes to show you how rapidly this is all advancing and how high school, a lot of researchers are looking towards high schoolers to mentor and have the next generation come up. So I know Columbia offers a program like that. So I would say definitely look into those type of opportunities. And there's also at Columbia, it's like this year-long science honors program that you can apply to. And you like apply in your sophomore and junior year, and every weekend in high school you can come to campus and you can take different science classes through the departments there. And that's something you can do in high school. So I would recommend that as well.
Yeah, those also like great opportunities. And I definitely agree how, especially now, so many things are online. We're transitioning to online, so there's a lot of courses available. And I know I just completed an online course for fundamentals of neuroscience, and I really enjoyed it too. So I think, yeah, just like going online and definitely looking for those opportunities is something that we should all do if we're interested in neuro. And then kind of adding on to the advice question, we wanted to ask if you had any advice for high school students listening who might want to apply to Columbia specifically and might want to study neuroscience at Columbia.
Yeah, so specifically for the college application process, I tell so many people really capitalize on quirks and the things that make you unique, that are part of your identity, because numbers and things like GPA, SAT, they're important, but they really only get your foot in the door. I think there's some type of like statement out there where if these universities wanted to fill an entire freshman class with valedictorians that apply to them, they could just do that. I wasn't valedictorian of my high school class. A lot of people there are just really unique in terms of what they've done. So when you're doing your application, try to do less emphasis on the numbers and more on your essays, your activities, places you can really shine through in things you've done in high school and stuff like that. And I would also say, don't underestimate the extent that humanity plays in the college application process, because at the end of the day, the person reading your application is another human being. It's not a computer, it's not some AI algorithm. They have application readers reading every single one. And that's a person with interests, likes, dislikes, goals, and you want to connect with that person through your application somehow. So making your application quirky and interesting enough where that person can really see you for what you are. I think that's really important. And then also specifically for Columbia, I think there will always be an application short answer about what your intended major will be and why. So if you're studying neuroscience and you'd like to, just thinking through and being really introspective about what led you to neuroscience and why that's your interest. For me, I talked about holding the human brain for the first time. So reaching out and having experiences like that you can talk about.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely helpful. And as like a high school student who's also like in the midst of college applications, it's really grounding to hear like, or have a reminder that there's actually the college admissions officers are people, and to not stress as much about numbers and things like that.
And that wraps up our questions for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us for the College Neuro Network. Your responses were so insightful and will definitely help high school students listening who are researching colleges and are interested in majoring or minoring in neuroscience.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much too.